Hello and welcome to the Global Podcast. My name is Adosal Sloth, and we are here to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of Global Conflict, a Battlefield community playing on PC every week. You can go ahead and visit us at global-conflict.org to know more. With me today we have Gwynza,
Hello.
Matif,
Hello.
01001.
Hey, yeah.
So I thought today we would begin with people, what's going on in GC at the moment. Today we had a Battlefield 4 evening. I don't know what people want to say about that.
Yeah, today we did Battlefield 4, and I think it was alright. We had planned, we'd hoped for having enough people in order to do some GC style settings, but unfortunately we only had about 16 people turn up. We really needed double that. So we went and jumped in pubbing, and I think it was quite fun, to be honest. The game is still obviously broken, but we enjoyed ourselves. It's nice to kind of get back with some faces who maybe don't play the other games we've been playing, and getting back into Battlefield shooting easy kills.
We were playing because there was a patch came out recently. Has anyone found that it's made things better than they were or worse than they were? I think 01, you've probably played Battlefield 4 the most out of anyone here, so...
I probably haven't actually, because I haven't touched the game in a long time. But I think Mantle is not working with the current beta drivers. That's for sure. Because it's, at least for me, it's causing memory leaks and massive frame drops. I switched to DX11 and it's better. The Mantle, I mean, it's more stable, but the FPS is much lower than it used to be. So maybe it's the drivers, maybe it's Mantle, I don't really know.
I think it's the drivers, and I kind of feel bad for AMD having to debut something that's going to actually be pretty revolutionary on such a turd, to put it lightly. But for me, before the patch, the game was barely playable. I had terrible FPS stuttering whenever anything happened on the screen, despite having pretty solid FPS most of the time. But after the patch, it became a lot more playable for me, although I haven't tried the Mantle beta drivers, so... But I really haven't played it that much either.
Yeah, I have to kind of say the same there. I'm crashing a lot less frequently than I used to. I used to crash like every second or third spawn, as well as just randomly through the time. I didn't experience a single one today. Although I noticed a lot of stuff which is still massively broken in the game, which I don't know if it was there before the patch or if it's not, but today I was going around in a tank. A lot of people know that the gunner position in a lot of vehicles at the moment is broken in any of the maps. That's just utter horrible. I mean, the fact that that's managed to get through any kind of QA is just ridiculous. But I was sitting in a tank earlier today, and I was on the tiniest slope ever, and I was like sliding down it. And that was just mental. It's this game which wants to be all super realistic feel to it, and you want to feel like you're really in something powerful like a tank, and you're on the tiniest little slope and you're sliding down. It's just it felt wrong. I don't know if that happened before the patch, but if a game's like this, it's still just as Massive said, it's a turd.
Yeah, as somebody who's spent a lot of time in vehicles, that's been happening since... It happened all through BF3 as well. The vehicle physics in the Frostbite engine have never been that hot.
I never found it to be this bad in BF3. Usually once you got parked, you were parked. But on this, it was seriously the slightest slope I was sliding. It
Well,
was
then,
just crazy. It was absolutely
Battlefield
crazy.
3 didn't really have these little rocks and edges like Battlefield 4 does.
I wish I could say it was a little rock or an edge, but that was just on a standard road. It was on that
No.
big, long desert map as part of which is on the new DLC, and just little road sniping with a tank. Impossible because you're sliding all the time.
To give DICE some credit, the vehicle wreck impact is much better in Battlefield 4 than it was in Battlefield 3. But I agree that sliding tanks is really fucked up.
Has anyone noticed any improvements in sort of gameplay wise? Because I know they fixed the kind of, I don't know if you call it a bug or a feature, where you can launch two Schroers at the target, and they both hit at the same time. I know they fixed that. I mean, has anyone found anything that was broken is now better through the patch?
The major one I've noticed is the MBT law not going through active protection anymore, which was terrible. They definitely fixed that, and it's a lot better than it used to be, although still not perfect.
In the patch, they didn't really introduce many new fixes or balancing items. They just released Mantle, I think. Because all of the hype they had about items they're monitoring and balancing, like the grenades and slams and weapons, it's all upcoming. None of it came out right now. It's just Mantle and some of the things that they had ready.
Another thing they fixed was the crosshairs misaligned on the T90 tank, because that was kind of annoying for some people. I personally never really had an issue with it, but they were off-center from where the projectile was going, so it's a little easier to aim now.
I don't quite get why that was still broken this late on, because that was a problem in the beta as well. I mean, it's been a problem since launch. I don't get quite why that's only just been fixed. But I guess they had major crashing issues to fix first, I guess. So that was today. I know last week some people wanted to get Red Orchestra going. Don't think that one ended up going ahead.
Red Orchestra 2, it was kind of late planned by a couple of people that we would move into Hour 2 for last weekend. A couple of people were made aware, but unfortunately we didn't have the time to get a front page news post up, and it didn't end up happening. So for those people who are wanting to play Red Orchestra 2, keep your eyes out on the forums. I imagine that something may be happening next week, or quite possibly the following, depending on what's going to be happening for BF3. Though for next week's events, or at least other future events, at the moment, as I say, we have Red Orchestra 2 planned. I am also looking into the First Strike mod, which is a 2142 total conversion, a Star Wars total conversion. That recently had an update last week released, so I'm looking into getting a server up and maybe organising some playtime on that. If anyone's got any other events that they want to speak about, feel free to just send myself, Gwynzer, a PM on the forums, because at the moment it seems to be me that's handling it, and we'll try work something out.
Okay. So I guess that takes care of what we're planning on doing. I know there's one you started to talk about things people want to see in the next campaign. So that'll be Battlefield 4 Campaign 2. Is there anything in particular anyone would like to voice about this?
Well, there's a thread about it on the forums that will hopefully be linked in the video description. But basically, the main aspect of it, it's going to be Commander finally. After having played Battlefield 3 without Commander, now we can have a proper leader who can see and actually control the battlefield, and no lock-on weapons, because I think that it makes it much too easy for some players and much too hard for the other players. That's about it. I would like everybody to just have a look at the thread and give your input. Most of the info is there on what I have planned and what other people have suggested.
So you're going to be general then, right?
I have not planned on that. No.
What I can say regarding kind of background work on next campaign is that we're starting to see some progress on getting the structure set up for next campaign. The Senate seemed to be making some movements towards gauging people who are willing to sign up for generals and such. So expect to see news upon the campaign within the next few weeks. But for now, certainly feel free to use any threads that currently exist or make your own for suggestions or feedback. They're definitely going to be needed because the game really needs some... We can't run the game as it is at the moment. We're definitely going to have to ban some weapons, put in some rules regarding other weapons and such.
I think it's going to be a bit awkward going into the next campaign because of. I know there's some people out there who don't want anything to be banned. I don't. I think they guess it's like the developers put it in there for a reason, so we should play with it. And I know other people would like nearly every other weapon banned, and so finding the kind of balance is going to be a bit tricky. And I suspect the powers that be are going to have a hard time deciding what they want and what they don't want floating around.
That is why it helps to get as many people commenting on these threads as possible, because it helps the kind of the leadership gauge what the community overall wants, as opposed to just a vocal few. So if you've got any input on the matter at all, just seriously make a post. It really helps our bosses out.
I know I'd like to see commander mode because that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that commander mode is pretty important because all the time during Battlefield 3, even when I was FCing, man, it was really hard to control the flow of the battle in a map. You had to write down where your squads are. But now the commander mode is fucking excellent. And we should use it seriously. I don't really see an issue of not having commander. When we have lock-on weapons banned, I don't think there's going to be such an imbalance between players having unlocked items and not having unlocked items, because aiming will be the important issue there.
Is there still the issue with commander mode where you have to have ranked to have commander?
Yes.
That's the reason we didn't do it before. See, that is a major obstacle for a lot of people, including myself, because I still to unlock a lot of the basics. Like, I don't have a ammo kit unlocked, for example. And I really don't like the game in public play at the moment, so I'm not particularly interested in playing just to get that GC. Which, I mean, what I can do, at least I'm one of these people who's lucky to have experience in high commands and generals and FCing and such, so I could just sit in commander and only do that. But the way I want to play is to be able to be on even par with my enemies or even my allies, you know.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't have to play a role that you are not comfortable with. I mean, the only requisition, as far as I know, is to be over level 10 to play on a commander server.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, nobody's forcing anybody to play something or somewhere that they're not comfortable with.
I think it's more it's kind of the opposite of that I have the issue with. On battle days, I really like running the support class. I don't usually do that when I'm playing public in BF3 or BF4. Because there's not so many, the battles aren't so focused, so there isn't as much point camping a doorway with an LMG never stopping firing.
Yeah.
But I like to do that on a battle day, and as I don't have anything unlocked for the support, that kind of puts me at a disadvantage.
The kind of major useful bits being the medkit and the big ammo pack, they always seem a bit far down the unlock order to me. To be, because you have to grind your way through probably 5 or 6 other unlocks before you get the one that you really want. And
it's not just for the equipment, it's also for weapons, because some weapons are definitely better than others. So you might have to go quite far down to get the weapon that is probably the best for what you do. But not only have you got to do that, you've also got to kill so many people with the weapon to get your scopes and other rubbish unlocked. So if you're playing with commander mode, it's important to kind of to have those to be able to have your people able to play with the unlocks somehow.
Well, the first unlocks for all the classes are relatively balanced for all ranges and uses, so I would argue against you on that. I mean, I think most of the weapons, like guns, that you come out with are pretty balanced on the first level.
But then you've still got to unlock the scopes and such for them, which may not always be an issue depending on what kind of gun it is or what you're using it for. But it's the fact that you don't have the same options as other people, which I just think is maybe not healthy for our kind of competitive play.
The first gun scope unlock is on 10 kills. So I think that if you have already unlocked the gun you want to play with, getting 10 kills with it is not going to be a problem. Gadgets, on the other hand, would be a problem, I think. I agree with you there, but we're going to have to think about how many players are going to have the issue of not having the loadouts and them wanting to, like, they really want to play that special loadout that they don't have unlocked. And should we really cater to them? Because I really want to play Commander. Because that's what's Battlefield about.
One of the other issues with the unlocks is vehicles. I mean, most people who play in vehicles at this point probably have the vehicles that they wanted unlocked fully. But, you know, a tank without reactive armor and active protection is going to lose to the tank with that stuff most of the time. So it's one of those, vehicle balance is a lot worse without them, but at the same time you have to judge that with how many people would be playing vehicles without having that stuff unlocked.
With that new campaign system that I proposed, armies would be actively working together to pit players of the same experience and skill level against each other. So hopefully that can be avoided in the battle days coming up.
I'm slightly hesitant to rely entirely on that because we've tried that kind of thing in the past and it didn't work out. I'm not saying it won't work out again because the more standard way of the competitive draft has also ended up with very biased matches and very even campaigns.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I've been part of the drafting process for about 4 or 5 campaigns now, and the draft hasn't always, like, every campaign I've done that I've been involved with, the drafts, they've done their best to be balanced between the armies, and there has been at some level communication between the high commands. The major problem with drafts is attendance is not guaranteed by anyone. There could be life events, life changes that happen, which maybe someone gets a new job, or they lose a job, or they get a partner, or have a child, and that, you might not know this ahead of time. But the time it sometimes takes between the drafts being ready and the campaign actually beginning and getting intense can be a month, 6 weeks down the line. So it is quite hard to get the truly balanced draft. We have tried a lot of ways, but we can always hope for a small change next campaign is what works for us. We won't know till we try. And I think at this stage everyone is open to trying something new.
Or someone could come up with an entirely new idea and it might work perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wholly recognize that I haven't taken a part in the drafting and I don't really know anything behind it other than I'm getting assigned to an army and I'm playing. If anybody has any ideas, definitely comment on the thread, please.
I know other ideas that have been thrown around active balancing, but I think the last time that happened was way before my time, and I think it ended up with problems itself.
I think active balancing would piss off a lot of players. Like if his counterpart doesn't show up and is forced to play like a really mundane and boring role that he doesn't really like, he might not show up anymore.
Yeah, I sort of meant like going through a campaign for 3 or 4 weeks and then going, this is unbalanced, let's switch these people around to try and make it a bit more balanced.
Oh yeah, I definitely would disagree with changing army compositions between or after the draft has taken place. I mean,
Yeah, that did happen during BF3C2 Hitcorp versus Kinetic Influence, where Kinetic Influence were winning and their kind of ace squad were transferred sites, and they were happy enough to go, but the rest of the army was a bit upset by that decision, and they didn't enjoy playing on the other side so much because they're kind of joining an existing army, and they ended up not playing so much, and it was kind of hostilities kind of brewing all across the board there. So unless we're knowing that something is going to happen ahead of time, doing a change mid-campaign is really not a good idea.
Going back into the history books, of being the old man in the group here, we did also in BF2 Campaign 7 switch a whole group of players to try to balance the armies when one side was getting completely rolled by the other one, and the group did stay and play with the losing army, but they were very low, like the morale was clearly lower, and it's not generally a good idea to be moving people between armies, especially when it's a situation where one team is completely rolling the other team, which would really be the only situation where you would consider such an action.
Yeah, and the fact that rolling takes time to stand out. Like, you could have a major win and a major loss in consecutive battle days. It doesn't really show up if you're winning a lot until at least 3 battle days, I think, 3 or 4. But by that time, you could already have a morale problem. How long was the last campaign, or Battlefield 4 Campaign 1 anyway?
There were, I think
from start to finish it was 2 months, including scrims.
I think we ended up with about 4 actual battle days.
Oh yeah, that's because of holidays and such.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of them. So maybe say 3 months, including scrims. But there was a lot of lost days due to, like, there's Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year. So that's 3 battle days that were kind of just put straight out. A lot of Black Ops didn't happen.
There was a good, I don't know, 3 weeks or something between one scrim and like the first official battle where it was decided that the game was essentially unplayable in a lot of aspects, and we wanted to wait it out a little bit.
Yeah, I do think that Campaign 1 was doomed from the very beginning. Just the state of the game, it wasn't ready for what we wanted it to do. And I still think it isn't. But it's getting there.
I agree with you that it isn't, but I mean, we have to do something, because otherwise we will lose a lot of players just because of nothing happening.
That is true. That's why we're kind of working on running these interim events and investigating other games to play. Hopefully we'll find either Battlefield 4 will get where we want it to go, or we will find a game which fills in just as well.
I think that pretty much covers everything that we had to say today. Grinza, Matsif, and O1, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Thank you to Mr. Blue for all the editing and recording that he does. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, out in the internet land, for listening to us. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. There'll hopefully be another one out next week, so stay tuned for that. And I've been Odosar Sloth. See you next time.